and welcome to Mindful Mondays with Iya Kemi. It's good to see some familiar faces. Miss Gloria, we have Miss Phyllis back, and I see some names that I have yet to meet yet. So I'm looking forward to meeting with you and welcome and thank you for joining us. I'm a very hands-on person, so if you would like to turn your cameras on because you can, that would be great so we can start the moment seeing each other and starting with our intent. For those that have already joined us in previous gatherings, we normally like to put a word of intent in the space. So today, my space or word in this safe space is grace. Because oftentimes we don't give ourselves enough grace in these challenges and opportunities that we have to grow and evolve. And so if we're not able to give ourselves grace, how can we give the next person grace? So I would definitely like to put that in the space today. And if anybody would like to turn their mic on, or if you can't turn your camera on, but would like to, put your word in the chat room or share it with the group, because words are vibration. And so in being mindful of our words and our intentions when we come into this space, that is part of mindfulness, because again, words have life. We are made of atoms, and words, again, are spells that we're putting out there. So is there anyone that would like to share what their word of and how or what they think of when they put grace or hear the word grace? What comes to mind that aligns with grace? And it could be simple, sometimes we make it harder than we have to. Self-love, that's tied to grace. Patience is tied to grace.
I'll take self-love.
Okay, you're taking self-love? All right, So we have self-love already in the space.
Extending kindness to another person.
Kindness. I like the word kindness. Most people don't know that the word nice actually means fool. Fool. Most people don't know that, but when you look at the etymology or the origin of a word, you'll find that some of these words don't actually mean what we think they mean. So kindness is a beautiful word, or kind is better than saying nice. So I like that, kindness. Miss Phyllis, and we have Miss
Calm, being calm.
Calm, that is definitely a way to give yourself grace, to be calm. I totally agree with that one. That goes hand in hand with patience. And we have two more, Miss Wynn and Miss Jackie. If you want to just type it in the chat room because you may be at work. And then we can definitely proceed on what this grace is and what does that look like. Because again, we may be having moments where we can't focus, or we tell ourselves, I'm going to do this today. I have this on my list to do today. I woke up with the intention to do this, but I only did 2 of the things on this list. And then people start to beating themselves up. I didn't do good. I failed today. I'm frustrated. I didn't even keep my promise to myself. Well, that's when grace comes in. That's when patience comes in. And that's when self-love and the calm comes in. Because if you acknowledge that you did get something done for the day, then you did do something. So you have to celebrate your wins more than your failures. Miss Adams, I was waiting to see your lovely face. Thank you for joining us today. I'm pretty sure you're still connecting with your audio. We just finished giving our words in the space today with the intention of grace being our focus today. The other words that we have added to the space has been self-love, kindness, calm, and patience, which was added by Miss Wynn. So is there a word and an intention that you would like to put in the space today?
In terms of grace?
Yes.
Mercy.
Mercy. Ooh, that's a good one. Mercy. So in doing so, we give ourselves a lighter load than the heavier load we put on ourselves when we think about the what ifs and the what I had and shoulda, coulda, wouldas, right? So oftentimes I tell people, even if you had the intent to get up for the day and you didn't do anything, you have to give yourself grace, because that was probably your body and your mind saying, it's time to rest. You haven't been slowing down, so it's time to slow down. And oftentimes we don't acknowledge that. So in failing to give yourself grace, then when that person cuts you off on the road, you can't give them grace because you didn't give yourself grace. So then you got road rage. Or somebody calls you and they start going off and talking about their stuff, and you get agitated by whatever they just dumped on you, instead of just giving the person grace because you allowed them to dump that stuff on you. But just say, you know what, let me give myself grace because I was able to hold space for that person. And they gave me another perspective now to be happier than I was before because they are going through something different. So that grace, I keep hearing the word compassion. You know, compassion is a little bit different from empathy. Some people say, I don't want to suffer with you. We don't have to suffer with the person, but we can understand so that we can better assist them and give them the grace. And in that, we have to have the patience and the calmness. Sometimes for the younger generation, it could be their parents. And even sometimes for the ones that are dealing with their parents who are elder, they can lose patience and have to learn to give themselves grace while they're being the caregivers for their parents and whatnot. Or when we're in the doctor's office and we're waiting to be seen, and they said our appointment was at 10, but we don't get seen till 11:30, 12 o'clock. We have to give ourselves grace because it could be a possibility that God kept you there a little bit longer and a car accident would have happened on the way home that you just missed because you were a little behind, so you thought, because time is an illusion. So in that is being mindful of our thoughts throughout the day. You know, how are we overthinking and not giving ourselves, our mind, grace to not think, to just breathe and just be? Giving ourselves grace sometimes to even watch an animation or a cartoon taking us back to that childhood, and giving ourselves that grace to go back into that childhood like energy and being playful and lighthearted. Sometimes people get to watching Law and Order all the time. And if you're watching nothing but Law and Order, CSI crime, just imagine what your energy is like every day. You investigating everybody. You are judging everything. So you're unable to give grace because there is no balance or other perspectives to see. Does that resonate with anybody? I see some smiles, I see some head nods, I see some things there. So in that, we have to give, again, this grace, mercy, and this calmness, and allow calm to be ours, because again, we rightfully have that ownership of that, but it's a choice, right? So even those times that we get upset, you know what, I did pop off just for a second, you know? And in this grace, someone added the word trust. Thank you, Miss Jackie. Trust. Trusting that all is well. Trusting and knowing that you've come this far and made it over all those obstacles that you've endured, all those challenges. Trusting that things will still work out. But having the patience while you're waiting, that's character. All of these things are what make up a good character. Most of the times we think it's just being kind to people, but then sometimes people are kind and then they go back and they're backbiting them to someone else about that thing that they had to be kind about. So then that takes away the genuineness of what it was. So does anybody remember the exercise we had last week? And did you give yourself grace and time to do that? Or 2 weeks ago, I would say, not last week, but our last meeting, the exercises that we had. We've had a couple now, but how have they been going back? in doing these exercises? Miss Phyllis?
I did. I wrote down my affirmations and I did post them up on the wall. I look at them. My plan is to start saying them out loud, but at least I put them right in front of me. You
And
know,
that is a start. And even you explaining that, you gave yourself grace.
I'm
And
starting.
what I love looking at you, you look so much lighter. You know, I'm seeing the shift in you.
I feel
you.
I do. That's why I'm showing up.
I love it. I'm so thankful for you showing up because this is for you, not me. And I love it. I love being a part of your journey.
Words are very powerful. And that's what I'm saying. I do feel it. You know, it's very intentional.
I love it. I love it. Thank you for sharing. I just got little goosebumps up my
I
arm.
did too.
Well, I have to admit that I totally spaced out. If it wasn't for Phyllis, I probably would have missed this class. This last 2 weeks has been chaotic, but the self-love that I was talking about. So I have my little Post-it notes and I'm going to write my affirmations because I know it's never too late. I'm going to stick them on my bathroom window mirror and just keep moving forward.
I love that. You just gave yourself grace. And I'm glad that Miss Phyllis kind of reminded you and had you present. It's always good to see your face. So thank you. And you're right. Time it's an illusion. So you definitely have time to still get it done. So gratitude for you acknowledging even that and being patient with yourself. Miss Adams, I think I see you unmuted there. Did you want to share?
Well, I didn't write any affirmations down, excuse me, but I have some that I normally do in prayer. So within my prayer, I'm continually affirming, I guess.
I love
grace
it.
in terms of kindness.
I absolutely love it. Thank you for sharing. Okay, I think that was all that was here, Miss G. Right, you weren't present the last group. Okay, so what the exercise was for them to write down things to affirm themselves with the word and the intent of putting I am in front of it. In doing this, this is something that you can recite on a daily thing so that you can now become that and embody that. Because we know that I am is very powerful. I am that I am. But when you put a verb or a noun or something behind that, even to say I'm tired or I am tired, then you start feeling more tired than you were before you said it. So in affirming yourself, this is something in an exercise that one can do throughout the day, especially on the days where they're feeling low and not feeling at their best. Again, there comes the grace, but sometimes people don't get up and immediately like, oh, I'm feeling down. Let me go grab my affirmations. It's not always that easy. So in that, we also had another exercise where everyone wrote down everything that they were grateful for. I am grateful for the roof over my head. It could be the small things, even saying gratitude to my lungs for helping me breathe. Gratitude to my intestines, small and large, for processing the food. We don't even think that minute, but that's very big because your cells in your body are always listening. So sometimes you have to give your body grace. You might be craving that steak. That's fine. Just thank your body for processing that steak. You know, if you know you steak might be a little tough, but you tasting that steak, go ahead and give yourself some grace and be kind to yourself and have that steak. But again, it's the intention and the mindfulness that we have as we do each thing upon waking. You know, that's really what meditation is. Your every walk is a meditation. Your every walk is an affirmation. It's just, are you affirming yourself in a positive light or in a negative light?
I like
So
that.
it's unlearning everything that you've learned. You know, oftentimes we lean on our parents for the things that they instilled in us. And sometimes that's not always the thing that's going to allow us to move forward. And we have to sometimes unlearn those things, especially if you had a traumatic childhood. So in doing so, we have to look at our parents' upbringings and what did they endure? And what was the era like when they were growing up? And in that, we can give our parents grace for whatever trauma that they may have inflicted upon us unknowingly. Same goes with our relationships. We don't know their upbringing, so we have to give them grace. But if we love ourselves enough, we have boundaries. And we know what those boundaries are so that no one can take advantage of us or make us feel less than. And we just sometimes have to have patience for people. And again, when we strengthen the patience for ourselves and our dreams, our goals, and what our expectations are for ourselves, then we can be, again, a little bit more patient with other people. Is everyone okay with all that? Does anyone have a question? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do a 10-minute meditation. I'm only gonna use the drum and the wind chimes this time because I understood how the ocean drum kind of was a little funny on the internet. So until I get the proper mic so that it can truly give you the full effect without it trying to figure out what is that? What did I hear? So I would like you to get in a space if you want to mute your mic so that it doesn't pick up whatever background sound and everyone can still hear. If you want to even turn off your video, you can do that as well. I will turn off my video so I won't be a distraction with the instruments as I'm grabbing them. But I want you to just remember the words that we put in the space with the intent of grace, self-love, kindness, calm, patience, mercy, and trust. Now, if you're working on all of those things, you can chant those things and those words. But if it's one in particular, you can put I am in front of it and say, I am trustworthy. I am patient. I am calm. I am kindness. I am self-love, or I am love. And in chanting that while we're going through the sound, your body is actually vibrating or going to embody that vibration of that word as the sound comes over to clear the energy from whatever thought may have been there prior. I'll be sure not to be hard on the drum this time, Miss Adams, because I know that it picks up very well. So again, if you want to, again, position yourself and close your eyes. And again, I'm not going to tell you how deep to go in your breath, but remember to take your breath down, allowing you to feel your chest rise, your belly rise, and then exhaling through the mouth with a sound or with the opposite of the word that you place. So if you don't trust, you can say, I'd let go of distrust, because again, the exhale is letting go of that energy and that vibration. On the count of 3, 1, 2, 3. Inhale. Continue breathing. Allow yourself to slowly integrate back in. If you did sit back or lay back, don't immediately jump up. Wiggle your toes if you happen to be laying down. Just allow the sensation to settle within. And if you have to take a couple of breaths and even make an exhale sound, or whatever, allow that energy that's been bottled up in your belly, where the emotional self sits, to be released. We are allowing ourselves to be love and give ourselves grace, kindness, patience, calm, mercy, and trust. Trusting that all is perfect. EIP is what I say. EIP. Everything is perfect. EIP. So sometimes you have to, in the midst, say, you know what? EIP. Everything is perfect. I have this thing that I do with people, and I'll randomly ask them, are you holding it? And they know that when I say, are you holding it? Are you holding on to the idea that everything is perfect? Are you holding on to your happiness? Are you holding on to your grace? Are you holding on to your love? Are you holding on to your calm? Are you even holding on to knowing and trusting what you know? Because sometimes our self-doubt leads to a lack of trust. So sometimes we need to trust ourselves better in order for us to trust other people and give ourselves grace. What I found ironic, as I always share, the wind chimes, interestingly enough, strings were tangled today. And that's very, very rare that I have things tangled. So I tend to look at, what does that mean? What a tangle web we weave. You know that saying? So sometimes we have to look at, how did we get ourselves in the entanglements that we are in order to give ourselves grace. Now, if we don't even look at what we're entangled in, how can we give ourselves grace? We have to go back to the source and remember who we were before that situation happened. Not remembering the situation, but remembering who you were before the situation happened to alter your calmness or your patience or your trust. So when we do these journeys, sometimes we have to take ourselves back to who we were before the trauma. Because sometimes we've been telling the story about trauma so much that that's what we've embodied. Ironically, the two elements of wind chimes that were played today was water and earth. Water deals a lot with emotions and our emotional self. We're also 70% water. So how often are we drinking water to even nurture ourselves? And we have the expectation for others to nurture us. So we have to give ourselves grace and remember to even replenish our body with water, whether it's drinking it or even taking a bath and sitting in the water and allowing your body to be engulfed in the water. We were in the womb for 9 months full of water, and we forget that sometimes. The other element being earth. How are we grounding ourselves? When's the last time have your toes touched the grass or the sand at the beach? When's the last time you've touched the bark on a tree? I can't tell everybody hug a tree because everybody's not a tree hugger. Some people don't like ants. So they immediately say, I'm not hugging no tree, they got ants on it. But the significance of ants are always working. Ants are always moving. Ants normally work in a community. It's very rare you see one. And if you see one, they're going out to hunt for the tribe. So in what way are you doing the work within yourself to ground yourself? When's the last time you just picked the flower from a garden you were walking by, or even smelled it? That is a moment of self-love and grace, because you're taking the time out to enjoy your surroundings versus being on the go. When we do this work or this mindfulness, we then begin to trust ourselves more in our intuition, because we're tapping into our mind. We're tapping into our thought process. We're tapping into our body and how it feels when we're around certain people. Are you cool when you're around a certain person, or do you get hot? Are your thoughts everywhere when you're around a certain person, or your thoughts calm? That is mindfulness, of being aware of your surroundings, again, to give yourself grace. Other ways that you can ground yourself is even just praying into your water, because some people have anxiety attacks. Some people have moments of doubt. And those affirmations, those I ams, you can actually speak it into your water and then drink it. And because you are water, 70%, as you are drinking it, you're embodying that vibration and that sound. Water has no enemy. Water is essential to life. We need water. So to love on yourself through water is a good tool that you can utilize for the next couple of weeks, and praying in your water and just see how that feels. I know that we did that at the top of this workshop a couple of months back, but I want to bring it back up for those that were not a part of it. Put your affirmations in your water and see what that does. You can also, if you're not able to go out in nature often, but you may take a slight stroll, you may find a stone on your walk that may speak to you as you're walking in the neighborhood. You can always pick that stone up and use that stone and grab that stone when you know you need grounding, to remind yourself, I need to ground myself. I'm a bit emotional, or I'm a little everywhere with my thoughts. So let me use this stone as a grounding tool. Some people even write affirmations on the stone and can put I am grounded. So that's another tool that you can utilize in order to remind yourself to be grounded and not your thoughts everywhere. 1 minute you're thinking about this, somebody calls, and then you forgot about what you were thinking about. Sometimes we have to give ourselves grace, come back in our body, and move forward. Now, I've shared from my perspective. I'm interested to hear how today's sound affected, in a good way, hopefully, those that were present. I know I saw Phyllis taking notes or writing words that came to her during the time, which is beautiful. And that's a beautiful form, a way to meditate. Most people think I have to be, and the mind has to be silent. That is not true. Mindfulness is being aware of your thoughts that are present and being able to control how those thoughts come about and process those thoughts. So is there anyone who would love to share what today's wind chimes did for them? Miss Phyllis.
So it's interesting because the drums were very calming for me, and they were actually grounding, and it made me very calm. The wind chimes were a little chaotic, but what I found is, as I was kind of thinking about the words, out of all the words, the two words that stood out was calmness and patience. But in reality, to me, calmness embodied all of the words, because in order for you to be calm, you're typically graceful. You typically have to be patient. You typically have to have mercy. You typically have to trust. And you typically, it's a form of self-love in order to be calm. And you typically have to be kind. You can't be mean and be calm. And so what I looked at was there was a definite opposite. One, I felt one way, and I really preferred the drums. The drums gave structure, and I'm a structure person. The wind chimes were, again, chaotic for me because there was no rhyme, no rhythm, no pattern. They were soft and just irregular, but I had to have patience to kind of get through it and to acknowledge, okay, well, this is just another form of medium. You like the drums, but it was just different. I mean, it became very clear to me. I had already made a preference. I like the drums, and I typically love wind chimes. I really like wind chimes, and because they remind me of being free. But I didn't get that. I got the drums was allowed me to be calm and allowed me to be present. It allowed me to be grounded. So it was different.
Yes, different from 2 weeks ago.
All right.
Yeah.
A little different 2 weeks ago, which kind of shows how energy shifts.
And I like the way you described that they got tangled. That's exactly how I felt them, that they were all tangled up. They weren't smooth like they should have been. So your description of what happened was very reflective of what I felt and heard.
Great, thank you. Thank you for sharing. Miss G, I see that you're unmuted.
Well, the wind chimes reminded me of something that I had done last week. I like to do reading programs during the summer, and they always have something for adults. And so the Alameda County Library has a theme of the wonders of nature. I think that's the theme. And so since I got the booklet late, I was going to do Discover. And I picked the Discover of walking in a different direction than you usually go. Okay, so if anyone knows the San Leandro Community Library, I live in Oakland, but I was going to go to the post office in that shopping area. So instead of walking towards East 14th, I walked towards Bancroft. And as I walked, someone had planted like a grove of sunflowers. I crossed the street, and then I started going down these little courts on the opposite side of the street. If anyone remembers the Longs over there by Callan and Davis, there's some short streets. So I walked down this one street. It was hot that day, but a breeze came. And as I walked on the opposite side, someone had in their trees several wind chimes. One had rods, but one had these little like oyster shells on them. And that's what your wind chime reminded me of. As they hit together, I like the shininess, I don't know how to describe it, the shininess of the sound. And I stopped, had my phone out because I was taking pictures, and turned it on a video and recorded the lovely sound that the wind made through the wind chimes. So your chimes reminded me of that. And you said they were earth and water. I never knew the chimes had any significance in what they were resounding. I guess that's the word. But yeah, it made me remember that. And it gave me a lovely feeling of winds come. I recorded and said that the song of the wind chimes, because it came, is it ethereal? Is that the word? It didn't last very long, but some activity was there and it made beautiful music to me. And I continued on my walk. So it reminded me of a beautiful time last week for me.
Oh, well, that sounds like I'm getting chills as you shared that. So that sounds like it was definitely in alignment, because again, you walking, that was grounding, just walking is grounding. And the fact that you said one of the wind chimes had an oyster on it, that takes us back to the water, and the sea. So I think that's really, really beautiful that you were able to tap into that. These wind chimes that I actually have are specific for the 4 elements. So I purchased them with the intention of knowing what I'm working with. They have others that are with the seasons, but I chose the elements because we're made up of all 4 elements. And those are the 2 that were easiest to untangle. And the other 2 just was like, don't untangle me, because we didn't really need fire and air, I guess. Well, the wind itself, wind chimes represented the air. But I love that story. It's kind of like you just took me on the journey with you last week. So thank you for sharing. Before anyone else shares, it looks like Wynn shared in the chat. She or he shared that the drum was very calming and it allowed them to sink and relax. Great to start the meditation. The chimes felt like an awakening, and it allowed me to be aware of my breath and thoughts. It made me focus on my intention, and they're hoping to get some wind this weekend so that their own wind chimes can play. Thank you so much for sharing. I love that. Love it, love it, love it. Miss Gloria or Miss Adams, did you want to share today on how that sound worked with you today?
Yes, for me, the drums represented a cosmic energy, because I was concentrating on that logo behind you. It's got a circle, and then it's got 2 crescent moons. So I was thinking of the vibration of the drum from earth to air. So it was just like a constant beat that was calming. It caused me to feel I am loved, I am trusted, I am merciful. I feel goodness in that I am receiving mercy in terms of goodness I don't deserve. And then the chimes, I really focused on that logo behind you because it's got feathers hanging. And the feathers represented the chime. Every time I heard the chime, I would see the feathers moving back and forth, playing with one another. So again, it was very, very calming.
Oh, thank you for sharing, Miss Adams. That felt good. I never even thought about that with the feathers of this logo and all of that. So thank you for bringing a better understanding of my own logo that I designed. That was very, I love that. That made me feel very, very good. Thank you.
Sure.
Miss Gloria, would you like to share?
Yes. I was surprised how difficult it was for me to breathe deeply this time. The sounds were great. I mean, I liked both of them. And I've taken notes that you talked about the wind chimes and what they represent. But, and as I continued to breathe, I was recognizing where some tension was laying in my body. And so I stopped the deep breathing and just breathe normally. And because I was getting distracted with internal stuff, like I need or should be doing this, that, or another. And I just kind of let it go. But I mean, like, it felt very tight in the center of me. And that was, because I usually can breathe deep, but it seemed like nothing was moving. And I just kind of let it go and continued doing that. And yeah. But I also like the fact that you were saying about water. And you say you could drink it or you can take a bath. And then the speaking into our water. So, yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing. I think you're giving yourself grace considering the last 2 weeks, which I may not know the details of it, but for you to express it the way that you did at the top of the group, it could be that there's some grief behind whatever may have transferred the last 2 weeks, because grief affects the lungs. So if you're having trouble breathing deeper than normally, again, you're still processing whatever's happened in the last 2 weeks. So continue to give yourself grace, to even acknowledge that and acknowledge the thoughts that were present. That is a beautiful thing, because that's a form of grace as well, versus saying, my thoughts were just everywhere. And you're kind of like, I threw my hands up. You gave yourself grace in that moment. You gave yourself even self-love to acknowledge those things that came up in thought, and to acknowledge that you weren't breathing as normal, and say, I'm not going to have to really breathe this deep right now, but I acknowledge it. So let me go back to my normal breath that's comfortable. Would you say the space that's tight is in between your heart and your stomach?
Yes. Yes.
Whenever you get the time, you can actually stare at the color yellow, or wear the color yellow, or light a yellow candle and stare at the flame. What this will do will help work and clear the energy in your sacral chakra, which is right above your belly button. This also is the area of creativity. So it may be some things that you want to write about the last 2 weeks to let it go and get it off how you feel about it. Because again, that area is your area of expression. So if you couldn't really express how you truly felt about what you've gone through in the last 2 weeks, you can definitely do that by writing the paper or journaling everything down. And you could turn around and say, I'm going to burn this and let this go.
Okay.
Because it's all symbolic and it's all intentional.
Well, that's great. I was just kind of shocked that I was having trouble breathing deep, because I usually don't. But yeah, you were saying that's connected to grief?
Yes. The breath is connected to grief.
Okay. That makes
And
sense.
grief doesn't always mean losing a person. A lot of times we attach that to losing people or people transitioning. Sometimes it's even a loss of your old self, as you evolve. There may be parts of you that's like, I miss eating those burgers, or I miss dancing.
Well,
And
that's
then we forget
interesting. Yeah, that's interesting,
and then
because we just lost our manager at this place, and it re-stimulated me in an earlier time in my life of losses, and sort of like not knowing what was going to happen next. And I find myself holding my breath sometimes, and I have to, especially if I'm trying to go to sleep. And I become aware of it, and then I do the breathing exercise, and that's that tension in my body.
Yeah. Well, definitely give yourself grace. Again, it's beautiful that you are acknowledging it, but it's definitely tied to grief. So condolences to you and all of those who are affected by the loss of the manager of the unit that you're in. Okay, is there anyone else that wants to share? We have about 6 more minutes, and I want to acknowledge Miss Linda. I see that your face has popped up. I'm not sure at what point you joined us, but thank you for joining us. I hope that you had the opportunity to listen to our 10-minute sound bath and meditation that we had today.
Thank you. I did come in toward the end of the meditation. I probably got about 5 minutes in, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I am one who also I love wind chimes. Wasn't quite sure what the assignment was, but seeing the participant Phyllis lying down, okay, we're meditating here. So let's see if I can get started. So I was late. I forgot. I was coming in from a dental appointment and trying to settle in, and it slipped my mind and just suddenly like, oh my gosh, and mindfulness is at 1:00. But I was able to come in and really experience what I need. I mentioned to you with your beginning session that I just need to slow down and so I was able to do that, and I'm looking forward to continuing. So thank you. And I'll
Oh, you
let
are
you go on with the class.
so welcome. Thank you so much again. time is an illusion and it's infinite. So you definitely joined us at the right time. And I definitely wanted to acknowledge you. I also want to acknowledge if you had a word that you want to put in the space, because although we're closing it, it's still a vibrational thing that we can carry with us into the next time we meet. So with the intention of the word being grace, is there something that comes to mind when you hear that word?
When I hear the word grace,
Yes, ma'am.
you know, what
I
came to
think
my
you had about 3
mind,
words. Yeah, 3 words came to mind.
what probably, but the one that just keeps coming back is blessing.
I love it. Blessing.
Yeah, blessing.
Blessing.
Just feel blessed. Yeah.
Thank you for putting that in the space, because today has absolutely been a blessing. It's always a blessing to meet with you all. With the assignment to take us into our next gathering, how can you apply this to your day-to-day? You know, look at some areas that you may want to give more grace in this coming 2 weeks. What does that look like? Is it with those who are going back to work? Is it with, family members or self? In what ways can that be applied to your day-to-day? And trust and patience. Self-love, try to do at least 2 things once a week. If you could do more than 2 things that represent self-love, what does that look like for you? Doesn't have to always be taking yourself out to dinner. It could be something simple like waking up and having your favorite cup of tea that you haven't had in a while. Or making that meal that you haven't had in a while for yourself. So in what ways does self-love resonate for you? And if you'll be back in 2 weeks with the group, then we can share that, because it may be some things that you do in your routine for self-love, in ways that you give yourself grace that can assist someone else, or someone else can implement that thing that you do because they forgot that that's something that they did.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely be gentle with yourselves. Give yourself grace. As we exit, I want to ensure that we are all sent out with love, kindness, patience, mercy, and trusting that we will see each other again in the next 2 weeks, and trusting that your week will be even better than it was the week before. Because whatever happened last week, and here we are in a new week, giving ourselves grace to live the life that we choose, the good life, the good path. So again, I thank you all for joining. If you don't have any questions, I will definitely send you off with good love and blessings on this beautiful 7-Eleven. So if you even are near 7-Eleven out in Oakland, go get your free Slurpee today. Give yourself some grace and have fun, and remind yourself of that inner child, and have you a good Slurpee. They're free. So thank you again. You guys have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.